Here's a thought. What if a country's greatest strength, its unstoppable drive for success, was actually creating its biggest existential threat? Today, we're diving into Singapore's fertility crisis, and the story here goes way, way deeper than just the numbers. Let's unpack how one of the world's great success stories might be accidentally writing a really troubling next chapter.
Okay, this is the number that's got everyone's attention. 0.97. That's less than 1 child per woman. For 2 years in a row, Singapore's fertility rate has hit a record low. Now, to keep a population stable, you need a rate of about 2.1. So 0.97, that isn't just a statistic. It's a quiet alarm bell ringing for the entire nation's future.
A key analysis we're digging into today sums up the whole issue with this one. Powerful quote. How on earth can success be a problem? Well, it's a huge paradox, and it suggests that the very things that made Singapore so prosperous, that intense focus on education, on climbing the ladder, might be the very things undermining its future.
All right, so let's get into the why. What's really driving these numbers down? If you ask most people, you tend to get the same set of answers.
And yeah, these are the usual suspects for a reason. They're all absolutely part of the puzzle. The sky-high cost of living, the demanding careers, that famous pressure cooker education system, they all make the idea of starting a family feel pretty overwhelming. But they don't tell the whole story, not even close.
According to the analysis we're exploring, the real overlooked cause is something a lot more personal, something cultural. It comes down to the incredibly high expectations Singaporeans have, both for who they should marry and for what it means to raise a child. So, let's start with marriage.
This brings us to a really fascinating social trend, something called the modern mating gap. Basically, it's a huge mismatch between what people are looking for in a partner and who's actually out there. And it all starts with education. Now, this is where the data gets super interesting. In Singapore, among young adults, you've got more women graduating from university than men. We're talking 64% of women versus 56% of men. On the surface, that's fantastic news, a real triumph. But it creates a very unexpected social ripple effect when you mix it with a powerful cultural preference. And that preference is called female hypergamy. It's a term sociologists use for a tendency we see in a lot of cultures, where women often prefer to marry a partner who is, you could say, their equal or higher in terms of status, so someone with a similar or better level of education and income.
So what happens when you put these two things together? You've got more highly educated women than men, plus a cultural expectation to marry up. Well, you end up with a simple math problem. Surveys show that most young people, like 8 out of 10, want to get married. But for this growing group of highly educated women, the pool of men who meet their expectations is actually shrinking. And the data backs this up with a pretty stark reality. In Singapore, the more educated a woman is, the more likely she is to stay single.
Okay, so finding a partner is one challenge. But let's talk about the second major factor, the expectations around actually having kids. If dating is tough, the pressure of raising a child in Singapore can feel like a full-time, high-stakes competition. And to really get this, you have to understand the idea of kiasu. It's a famous Singaporean term that basically means afraid to lose. But it's more than that. It's this deep-seated, hyper-competitive mindset that shows up everywhere in life, and especially in parenting.
This slide just lays it all out, what that kiasu mentality looks like in real life. It is a full-blown parenting arms race. A kid's grades aren't just about their future, it's seen as a reflection on the whole family. This leads to intense tiger parenting, spending huge amounts of money on tutors, and even people buying multi-million-dollar homes just to be near a good school. When you think about the sheer weight of all that, the time, the money, the stress, the idea of having even one kid, let alone more, can feel absolutely monumental.
So if parenting is already this intense arms race, you might think, hey, maybe new technology can help. But the analysis we're looking at today suggests we need to be careful because these new tools could actually be a double-edged sword, making the pressure even worse.
Let's just break this down. On one side, you have the promise of amazing technologies, like advanced genetic screening. Healthier babies, giving them the best start in life. Who wouldn't want that? But then you look at the price, and I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about the incredible social pressure to use these tools to create the perfect child. The fear of not doing everything you possibly could.
And here is the great irony in all of this. The massive cost and the immense pressure to produce one single, genetically optimized child might lead couples who wanted a bigger family to just stop at one. The quest for perfection could, believe it or not, push the birth rate down even further.
So,
If the problem is really rooted this deep in our expectations, what on earth is the solution? I mean, the government can offer more baby bonuses, more subsidies, but that kind of financial help doesn't really touch these underlying cultural pressures, does it?
And that brings us to the most important point of this whole explainer. Policies alone just aren't going to cut it. The source material argues that really tackling this crisis means something much bigger, a fundamental shift in the whole societal mindset. It means rethinking what we expect from a partner and redefining what a successful childhood even looks like.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big question. Singapore's story is really specific, but the lesson here could apply to every single one of us, no matter where we live. It really forces you to ask yourself, how much of what I want in my life, in a partner, for my kids, for myself, is something I truly desire, and how much of it is just shaped by the silent, unseen expectations of the world around me?